You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet recently announced their 2024-25 season, one which both celebrates the company's storied 85 years through iconic classics and anticipates what's to come with exciting Canadian premieres. To chat a little bit more about the season, I'm joined by the RWB's Vanessa Léonard. Welcome to Classic 107. Thanks so much for being here so early.
Thanks for having me this morning.
I want to begin by chatting a little bit about your association with the RWB. It goes back to your student years, 94. You became a part of the professional division. You were hired in the company in 97, rising to the rank of principal in 05-06. You now work as company ballet master instructor and serve as the Anna McGowan Johnson Aspirant Program Director. But do you still get excited about season announcements? Is there still a buzz that's in the air?
Of course. I mean, it's always fun to share with everybody what we're planning, and I mean, especially for the 85th year, that's a huge milestone, I think, for the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. We had our 80th anniversary, obviously, 5 years ago, and that was a big, exciting thing with so many plans. But unfortunately, COVID, of course, put a damper on a lot of those plans. So I think it's really nice 5 years later to sort of celebrate the success and the longevity of the company and just everything that we're doing. So it's so fun to announce what we're doing. There's some beautiful, wonderful ballets on the list for next year. So I think it's going to be a really great year.
So let's chat about some of those beautiful, wonderful ballets. Yes. It all begins with a quintessential romantic ballet. Giselle returns to the Centennial Concert Hall.
Yes, Giselle it's actually one of my favorites. And Giselle was the first production, just, talking about myself a little bit, when I was in the company as a young dancer, it was the first iconic big lead role that I did with the company. And so it has a very special meaning to me. I do remember when Andre Lewis told me that I was going to be performing the role of Giselle, and I was young. It's such a mature role. It's so challenging artistically and technically. So for me to take that on, I mean, I was in complete shock when he told me at the beginning, and I thought, how am I going to portray this young woman and how she goes through such pain and really has such an incredible journey. But I took it on, and it has a big meaning to me as well, because at that point, when I was young in my career, Evelyn Hart was still in the company, and she's really obviously well known for this part internationally. So she was an idol of mine, and she actually was so kind to really guide me and walk me through a lot of the role in terms of the artistry of it. The technique is one thing, but it's so much of it is the telling of the story and leading the audience through the progression that this character takes, which is such a difficult thing to do, and you have to be so vulnerable while you do it. So I really appreciate everything she gave me and all the advice, and just watching her, obviously, but the guidance that she gave me, I think, is what allowed me to make it something successful.
That guidance from Evelyn Hart, but then also you worked alongside Peter Wright, the choreographer, too, right? I think he was in helping with that as well.
Yes.
And now there is the sort of next generation that is going to take center stage. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is about Giselle that makes it such a classic?
Well, I think because there's such different atmospheres you create. I mean, in Act 1, you have the morning. In Germany, it's very earthy. It's very the market scene. It's extremely human and real. And then, of course, you go into Act 2, and you're in the forest, and there are all the willies that come up, the spirits of women who have been had their heart broken, and they all come out into the forest, and it's such an ethereal, different look. So the two different atmospheres you create are just so beautiful, both of them. It's so different, and it's really challenging for the lead character to play the two different parts, obviously, and sort of you have to change who you are as a human being at intermission. I remember putting on the costume and looking in the mirror and just you have to become something different. I had this imagery of all the bones in my body sort of leaving my body, so that I had no structure left. I was just a spirit. But I think it's such a beautiful journey for the audience to go on.
It is indeed a stunning production, and what a way to begin a celebration of 85 years.
Yes.
From there, Nutcracker returns, which should come as a surprise to no one
That's right,
listening. Yeah. It is one of those beloved productions that, I mean, it really makes the holidays, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it's such a tradition, I think, for both the dancers and also for the audience. You know, many of the dancers don't have family here in Winnipeg, so it sort of became like our family Christmas dinner was being on stage in the Nutcracker. So I think you see that joy when you watch the dancers, and of course it's the familiar music, the dancers, the all the characters I think everyone knows and loves. So it really is a tradition that I think is great for all families.
So from a great tradition, we move on in the new year, 2025, with a Canadian premiere, Jekyll and Hyde. It opens March 6th. What can you tell? Can you tell us anything about this particular production?
Well, I haven't even seen it, which I think is is really exciting.
Yeah.
But I do know the choreography very well. The choreographer is Val Canaparoli, and he did our production of A Cinderella Story, which is such a fun ballet. It's he took a real twist on it and set it in the 1950s to Rodgers and Hammerstein music with the live big band orchestra, and it was such a success for our company. And I've actually gone on to stage the work in a couple of different companies in the States, and everywhere has really loved it. So I know that Val has such a wonderful way of bringing stories to the stage, and I am so incredibly excited to see this production of Jekyll and Hyde. I think it's going to be fascinating. I've read a lot of really wonderful reviews. I've seen some photographs, and it was originally staged on the Finnish National Opera. So that is an extremely good company, and I know they brought a really wonderful portrayal of it. So I'm unbelievably excited for what that production is going to bring to Winnipeg.
You and I both. You mentioned that Cinderella Story from a couple seasons ago, and that the music led by Ron Paley. I mean, big band goodness, a little bit of Rodgers and Hammerstein, some jazzy goodness as well.
Yeah.
I was curious as to which direction this is going to go, and I was peeking at some of the music that was referenced. I mean, we're a classical music radio station, and it's like Chopin and Penderecki and Goretzky and Kilad and Wieniawski. I would imagine a more somber, weighty tone. This sounds like something a little bit more sinister than that whimsical Cinderella story that we saw a little while ago.
I think so. I mean, I think obviously with the story of Jekyll and Hyde, I don't think you can go whimsical with that.
Yeah, it ain't going to happen.
It's this, fighting between the two personas of the main character. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of it. And I'm very excited. I think the main character is it's two males, I believe, that portray the two different well, it's one person,
the
but
two sides,
different personas. Yeah. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what that brings. Some
really strong contrasts in this season. Thinking back to the Giselle, right? Going from Act 1 to Act 2, Jekyll and Hyde, two different personas. Yeah. And I think that's really showcasing this contrast of 85 years of tradition and legacy and what is yet to come for the company. And I mean, there's one last major bit on the program, and this is a mixed rep show that closes things out. What can you tell us about this?
Mixed rep, I think, is always so wonderful because you get to see the versatility of the dancers, and it actually it's real food for the dancers as well because they get to go from one ballet and then really quickly change into a very different style, different choreographer, and show something completely different. So I think it is a good mix for audiences, but also for the dancers to grow as artists and really be able to portray different characters in a short period of time. It's a great production. I have danced in 2 out of the 3 of the ballets. The first one is Bolero, which is choreographer Stefan Azule, who's currently a soloist in the company. And this was first done a couple of years ago for our Fast Forward series that we had in Winnipeg. And it's a wonderful ballet. I mean, he has a lot of potential as a choreographer. And I'm really excited to see it brought to the concert hall stage because it was done in our in-house studio theater at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet.
Yeah, big main stage debut.
That's right. Yeah, so to have it on the big stage, I think is going to bring a new look to it. It's powerful. Obviously, the Ravel music is extremely powerful, but I really believe that Stefan came up to the music choreographically. So that's going to be exciting. And then after that, there's Angels in the Architecture, which is a sort of a classic Mark Godin production. Beautiful, really, really beautiful. Aaron Copland music.
Appalachian Spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a beauty.
Oh, it's such a beauty. And it's so pure. It's so beautiful. Exploring a lot of different shapes and shaker styles. So it's really quite a lovely piece. And then actually the last one is, I think, one of my favorites. It's called Hikarizzato. And we haven't done it in the company for a long time, but I was in the original cast when it was brought to Winnipeg. Choreographer is Itzik Galili, and it's a production. It's almost like karate for dance, or it's so athletic, and it's just such an interesting piece. There are squares of light that are projected onto the stage.
It's coming back to me now.
Yeah,
I remember this now.
And
Yeah.
It's all percussion. I think there's something like 119 lighting cues in a 20-minute piece, or even more than that. I can't remember exactly, but it's just the precision of it and the athleticism. It's just wild. And it was, I think, originally staged on Stuttgart Ballet in Germany. And I remember back when it was being staged on our company, and we were watching it and going, wow, it's absolutely mind-blowing. It's like a rock concert for
for ballet.
For ballet. And, like the flexibility and the strength, and just the sheer energy that the dancers have to portray is quite incredible.
Well, what a season it will be. Plus, there is the Spotlight in May and On the Edge in June.
Right.
Thank you for walking us through this program and providing your perspective, Vanessa. Really appreciate it, especially hearing, how you were so involved with many of these works. And then there's also the connection to the new works that are happening and your involvement with the RWB. And just before I let you go, you've joined us on International Women's Day. And I want to take a moment to just ask you a little bit about what that means to you. Because as we've been talking about, you're a former principal dancer. You work in a leadership role now, fostering the next generation of talent. You talked about working with Evelyn Hart and that sort of experience for you. I'm curious, thinking on this International Women's Day about what it means to inspire that next generation to be a leader in the arts and the ballet community. What does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think International Women's Day obviously is celebrating the women who have fought for equality and for women's rights, which is so incredibly important. Obviously, that's still going on in the world today, but I think the awareness of it is much more there. It's really being shown, which is great, and people are talking, which I think is the most important thing. So, hopefully things will continue to improve. In dance, it's really interesting because, of course, as students, there are thousands more female students in ballet, I should say, not in dance necessarily, but in ballet. But then, in the past, you get into the leadership roles and choreographers, and it was more male dominated. So we're starting to see a turn in that, which is really exciting. And I think, of course, as there are many more women, I think we have a lot to bring in the leadership, and it's so important. I feel like I have a lot of knowledge just through my experience, and I want to pass that down. And I also try to, when I'm working with the Aspirant program, I try to find female choreographers, because I think it's important to have their voice on stage as well, and have my students working with female creators. So it is an important day, and I'm excited to keep going with that.
I think that totally hits the head of this year's theme, which is inspiring inclusion, right? Making sure everybody has a seat at the table, and there's that equal opportunity. It's an equitable opportunity, and there's that diversity of opinion that just makes everything better, right? And I mean, that's what we're striving towards, is just really bringing this art form and, the world, but to the heights that it can achieve, right? So appreciate you joining me this morning to walk us through this upcoming 85th season. I mean, I just can't get over it. 85 years at the RWB. And yes, there is still a season that is not yet finished up in this 2023-24 season. So lots to check out at rwb.org. Vanessa, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.